Back with you tonight here on In Focus, and thanks for staying on. The Ekurhuleni Council says it is vetting the ANC's motion to remove Mayor Tania Campbell to see if it meets Council's requirements before replying to the ruling party's request for a 26th of October Council seating. Among other allegations, the ANC has charged that Campbell's administration has racialized service delivery in the sprawling metro. The motion comes weeks after Joburg Mayor Mpho Phalatse was ousted in a motion of no confidence. Campbell says she is not desperate to stay in power.
We are not willing to go with power at all cost. I am willing to sit on the opposition benches if need be. I have said that on many times that I'm desperate to get services to our communities. So having power at all cost is not looking at what your community's needs are.
Joining us now to explain the motivation behind the ANC's motion to remove Mayor Tania Campbell is Ekurhuleni Multi-Party Coalition spokesperson Siyanda Makhubo. Siyanda, before we get into the conversation, I want you to listen to what the leader of the Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen, had to say around what would make these coalitions really work in the various metros in the country.
The reality is that the ANC is in a downward spiral and it's currently taking the country down with it. The situation is very, very bad and it's getting worse. Poverty, service delivery failures, crime, corruption, debt and unemployment running completely out of control. And we cannot afford to replace a failing ANC government, whether at a national, provincial or local level, with unstable, cumbersome coalitions. If coalitions are going to be the future in South Africa, then Parliament needs to take the necessary legislative steps to ensure that they are stable and are able to deliver. Many, many other countries have done this and are governed by successful, stable coalitions that deliver on a national level.
What are your thoughts? Do you need more legislation to stabilize the coalitions in the various metros?
Good evening, Thabo, and good evening to your viewers at home, particularly the residents of the city of Ekurhuleni. Look, Thabo, this is not a conversation about legislation. It's about a conversation about political parties having the right, interest at heart for residents, particularly local government. I will not entertain national or provincial coalition government arrangements. But local governments are about service delivery. It is about street lights. It is about electricity, water, sanitation for residents. It is not based on ideology. We believe, at least as a multi-party coalition, and insofar as all the parties concerned, it is about the bread and butter issues of residents at a daily basis. So the conversation about legislation has, according to our knowledge, has no place in the local government, but it is about the bread and butter issues and daily struggles of residents. And insofar that is concerned, multi-party coalition partners will have to be matured. They will have to put the interests of residents up front and not their political ideologies in the center of conversation.
So let's look at this particular motion. I believe it's not yet before Council. It's still with the programming committee to see whether there's merit in this and it is in the best interest of the society itself. The ANC confident that the basis by which they are putting this motion forward are sound. They believe that the reason, for example, will resonate with the majority of the parties in Council. In terms of your finalization as parties on whether or not this will go ahead, what would you be looking for?
Yeah, so the motion was submitted last night. It came through to the Speaker's morning this morning. And from our understanding from Council procedures, it will serve before programming, where parties are represented in that committee who will then decide whether the motion does fit the thresholds as per Council rules and the Municipal Systems Act. But what we have seen as a multi-party coalition government, over the past 10 months, we have been in government trying to turn around the years of neglect and years of maladministration by previous ANC-led administration. The city of Ekurhuleni is at least 20 years old. It was established in the year 2000, and we've always had ANC governments in the metro. So for the ANC to bring forward that that we are mismanaging the municipality, that there's no service delivery, and all other issues that they're pointing, according to the multi-party coalition, is frivolous and it's laughable, especially to the residents of Ekurhuleni. This metro has been run down by the ANC. This metro has been mismanaged by the ANC. Infrastructure has not been developed and maintained. And as a result, the residents of Ekurhuleni last year took to the polls and made a decision to remove the ANC. That is why we have a multi-party coalition government in the city of Ekurhuleni. So for the ANC to try through the back door, to try to assume power that they have lost on their own side. I mean, they've enjoyed majority of government for the past 20 years, and the residents of Ekurhuleni have said enough is enough. That is why we have this multi-party coalition arrangement currently in the city of Ekurhuleni. And Thabo, it is important to remind residents that this is a minority government, which means majority of parties in council agreed that this multi-party administration must take the administration forward. We did not have a majority last year after the elections. We did not enjoy the majority. And therefore, we are confident that the current composition of council and all the parties in council will support this administration moving forward. You can't possibly tell me that it's going to take 10 months to turn around 20 years of mismanagement and maladministration that the ANC has brought forward to the residents of Ekurhuleni.
Yeah.
And this is where the multi-party coalition is. We have tried for the past 10 months to pin down corruption, to ensure that employees of the city deliver and adhere to the policies which have been placed by this multi-party coalition. And we've been having services coming back to the city of Ekurhuleni. We accept that it's going to take a while, but this is where we are right now. And the multi-party coalition arrangement believes that these points brought forward by the ANC are frivolous and quite frankly laughable.
So the 2 points, one being that you finalized budget without considering the input of community members, and two, that the budget is pursuing an anti-poor agenda.
Over the past a few months, Thabo, we embarked on an IDP process and a budget process, which culminated to a number of public meetings, which included and involved members of the community, various stakeholders in society. And this was done according to the law. We went through the IDP Act. The administration also utilized the Municipal Systems Act, where, as far as we're concerned, consultation and public meetings set. Now, it is very laughable for the ANC to claim that these consultative processes were not followed, where we know, we are reliably informed that the ANC was through the back door, part and parcel of disrupting these consultative meetings. Unfortunately for them, whilst they were still coming to reality that they've lost power, these consultative meetings set, members of the community came and attended these meetings, inputs were received from members of the community, and they were considered by the multi-party administration. And a budget that is pro-poor was presented to council and was once again supported by all parties in council. On the issue of the budget and the IDP being not being pro-poor, that is unfortunate because the ANC will know that we had brought forward to council a 50% debt relief, which was welcomed by all residents. This basically means that residents will come forward and be assisted to have 50% of their debt relief written off. If this is not pro-poor, Thabo, then we don't know what planets the ANC lives, because all parties in council were consulted, members of the community were consulted, and this is what the residents have said to expected. Over the past few months, particularly in July, we saw in Chelisa residents were misinformed by the very same ANC in our communities, where the township was disrupted. Yeah. It turns out that residents were not informed by their ward councillors or what was on offer from them. And this multi-party coalition government is exactly doing that. We are providing services that the residents need. We are offering indigent policies that are pro-poor. We're also giving residents a 50% write-off on their debt from previous years, and it's laughable. I mean, this is frivolous, yeah. And it's surprising to most parties in council where this motion comes from, sure. Because it does not meet the standards and the political will that the ANC has in council.
I tell you what is who's not surprised. I've got with me a statement from the EFF in the province, signed by the Gauteng provincial chairperson of the EFF, saying that in Ekurhuleni, black populated communities remain neglected by the DA-led administration regarding service delivery. Waste is not collected in Tembisa. There is general degeneration of sewage systems in Katoras. The water infrastructure has collapsed in Guatemala, and about 119 informal settlements are waiting for formalization across the region. Here's another part of that council, a substantial one, by the way, which could possibly shift the vote as far as the motion of no confidence is concerned, feeling that this administration has been neglecting poor black communities, in particular in Tembisa and in Katlehong, Thokoza and Vosloorus.
Thabo, we welcome and we noted the statement from the economic freedom fighters. And that is the true state of our municipality. And that is why residents last year took a decision to remove the ANC from the corridors of power. I mean, 20 years of neglect and mismanagement of infrastructure has led to this municipality to have spilling sewer across all townships. I mean, notwithstanding the apartheid special planning that the municipality has inherited, the ANC has neglected townships. The ANC has neglected to bring forth infrastructure, development and maintenance to the forefront. And this administration, shy of 10 months, is trying to turn that around. I mean, our budget illustrates just that. I mean, if you go through our budget and our IDP, we are reprioritizing certain areas within the municipalities. We are reprioritizing housing and informal settlements. Just last month in our council meeting, the NMC of Human Settlements tabled a report which will see the recategorization of certain informal settlements to a better category, which will see those informal settlements getting free basic water and electricity. I mean, this is what this new administration is trying to do. It's trying to address the mismanagement of the previous 20 years of successive ANC administration.
Have you been engaging the economic freedom fighters? Because by the numbers that you have, I think, is it 113? That would be the magic number that you would need to have in order for the motion of no confidence to not be successful. If you don't have the EFF as the multi-party coalition, you don't have that number.
That is the true state of affairs, Thabo, within our council. We are a hung municipality, and so far as we're concerned, we are a minority government. Being cognizant of the fact that we're a minority government, we have been throughout the past 10 months been engaging with all political parties, particularly before council sits and particularly before important reports would be tabled in council. The executive mayor has informed the multi-party coalition on a number of occasions that she has been engaging with other political parties outside of the multi-party coalition agreement. There is an understanding and a good working relations across the board, and there is an understanding that we are all working together to turn the current state and the current crisis that we have inherited from the previous ANC government. And this is very important, Thabo, because this is the trick about coalition governments. You try to negotiate and consult with all representatives in council so that you find a mix for working relations. And this is how the city of Ekurhuleni, which was written off by all pundits and by all political analysts, that this government will fail within the third month of being in government. And we have proved so many people wrong that we can work, we can show the country that coalition governments work. And it has taken the majority of all parties, both in and outside of the coalition governments, including the EFF, where we have worked together to find good working relations for the betterment of our residents.
As a multi-party coalition, would you welcome an EFF administration? I'm reading between the lines in their statement. And of course, listening to the conversations and looking at what has been happening, we know that there's been meetings between the Deputy President of the EFF, the Secretary General, I think the chairperson was there, and the provincial leadership of the EFF, as well as the provincial leadership of the ANC. Their statement says the EFF, through its public representatives in council, have pushed numerous motions in a bid to force these coalition governments to do what they are meant to do. But here's something interesting for me. It says, the EFF has long been a government in waiting. We continue to call on our people to do the right thing in 2024 and entrust EFF with a task of bringing tangible changes to Gauteng. The poor and the marginalized masses in Gauteng look to us for a change. There has been a talk of possibly this arrangement between the ANC and the EFF could see the EFF running Ekurhuleni. Would the multi-party coalition support that?
Look, the multi-party coalition is, like I've been saying, Thabo, is a minority government. So any day is our last day, literally. And what we're trying to say is that if council's current composition says, look, you move aside and occupy the opposition benches, we will welcome that. If the EFF assumes power, the ANC assumes power, we will still fulfill our constitutional mandate and the mandate that our voters have given us in our own individual parties to hold the government of today to account. And that's the most important job that we have as political parties, to ensure that the will of the people succeeds, to make sure that the IDP which would have been voted for council goes through, and that the budget is adhered to. And that is our primary objective as political parties in council. And if we occupy the opposition benches, we will hold whatever government that assumes power in Ekurhuleni to account to make sure that our residents' interests are put forward. So that's where we are as a multi-party coalition government. But currently, our priority is to make sure that we turn the 20 years of ANC mismanagement and neglect by the ANC around, so that our residents in the next few years see the change that they voted for in 2021 local government elections.
So, Siyanda, if I'm understanding you correctly then, are you saying that the multi-party coalition will try and block this particular motion of no confidence from making it onto the program?
So Thabo, once a motion comes through, it will go through the programming committee, and all parties are represented in that programming committee. And individual parties will then make representations on whether the motion, number one, meets the thresholds as per council rules, and number two, whether we can go ahead with it as the law dictates. And once it goes through programming, it's before council. And as a multi-party coalition, we are committed to the coalition agreement that we entered to. So we will vote against the vote of no confidence. That is what we're saying. And that is the process that's before us. But the conversation right now is whether the motion put forward by the ANC meets that threshold. And the speaker will then call programming committee just before council, who will then agree or disagree whether the motion meets the threshold. But as a multi-party coalition government, we're very clear. We will vote against this motion. We are of the opinion that this government is bringing around the changes that residents in Ekurhuleni need, and that we are about to have a turnaround with what's before us. So that's the current process that we're in. So whatever conversations that are happening at whatever level, this multi-party coalition government is open to work with all parties, as we have been for the past 10 months. And our priority right now is to make sure that services are delivered to the residents of Ekurhuleni.
Siyanda Makhubo, I appreciate your time. Ekurhuleni Multi-Party Coalition Spokesperson. Thank you very much for coming on.